7 o'clock, the regular monthly meeting of the Southbury Board of Finance is called to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's see, all our regular members are here, so we will not be seating alternates. First item of business, the minutes of May 19th. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Tom. Is there a second?
There's a couple of typos.
Second.
Okay, let's go with the second first, though, okay? Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, John.
Second.
Now, we have some typos, spelling typos, but no substance.
Yeah, in
Okay.
the minutes, there's on the bottom of the first page, it says have to, something, property, and it looks like have to have.
Subject to this grammatical and spelling errors. Any further comments or suggestions?
We're going to talk about Mr. Sell's thing tonight, aren't
Say again?
we? We're going to talk about, when are we going to talk about the proposition about the charter piece?
If we did not have that in the agenda, we will add it.
Okay, I
But
mean,
as to-
I don't, again, I don't know what the time dependency on it is,
Right.
but I think we should definitely just not throw it under the rug.
We'll do the minutes, and then we will add that to our agenda, because I missed it when we put it together. All those in favor of the minutes? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? So ordered. Public comment? There's no public here. The press is here. Choose not to comment. That's fine. New business, transfer station. Mr. Emmerich sent an email indicating that he thought we ought to be looking at whether or not we should change how we handle bulky waste and large items at the transfer station. I'm going to let Brian, why don't you comment, and why don't you say what you had in mind?
Yeah, and first, I want to clarify more along the lines of what this is not. This is not a complaint about the staff at the transfer station. This has to do more with the policy of when you take something to the transfer station. You used to be able to take simple things from your yard, the waste, old wood, things like that, drive it up and drop it off. But at one point, there was a determination that you had to pay for a fair amount of this stuff. And then recently, they've made it so that you have to pay for everything that goes up on the hill. I went there the other day. I had a small 2x3 sheet of plywood, used plywood. They told me I couldn't take it up and I'd have to pay $5 to drop it off. And, you know, over the years, I've been looking at this occurring, and it seems like the changes that have occurred up that hill where the bulk waste is have been, you know, when you talk to the staff, they'll tell you, well, at one point, they stopped taking cash because what they said to me was that somebody felt that they couldn't be trusted. Well, that's one thing, but when you go to the dump, certainly when I go to the dump, I don't necessarily take a checkbook with me, and in today's world, checks are becoming outdated. A lot of people don't even have them anymore. So if checks are the only way to drop off waste from your yard, we're limiting a lot of people. And on top of that, everybody else that I talk to when in different towns, the majority of them, they just take their stuff to the dump and drop it off. So I'm not quite sure why, since we're already paying for the recycling center, we're already paying for the facility and the staff and everything else, that we have to stop. And now there's a very large, detailed sign that has a price guide for individual things like a desk or a table or a whatever, all the way through. So you basically have to drive up now, they look at your stuff, and they have to total up what it's going to cost you to dump it. And honestly, I think that it's a disservice to the residents of the town to have to go through that sort of a hassle, and it's totally unnecessary because we already pay for it. So I would like to know, I would like to request that there be at least a consideration that we just identify the stuff that might be the large quantities of maybe commercial stuff that would be dumped in. Train the staff on how to identify that problem, if that's the problem, and just allow the town residents to dump off their waste, because what we're gonna end up with, and I find myself doing this at this point, is we're gonna have people keeping stuff in their yard. It's gonna get built up, and people aren't gonna pick up stuff, put it in the back of their vehicle, drive it down to the dump. They're just gonna keep it in their yard, because they're not gonna wanna pay 20, 40, who knows how much it's gonna be to take a pickup truckload of stuff to the dump. So I would like to request that we at least consider, or the powers that be, that we eliminate these extra fees, because I don't think they're necessary and other towns don't do them.
The Board of Finance's dog in this fight is money. We are not the Board of Selectmen that sets that policy. We could make a suggestion to the Board of Selectmen for something, but as to the money part, Dan, can you share with us what have we taken in the last few years for this bulky waste? What's at risk if we don't do anything?
I could give you so far this year, John, we took in,
Through May, 11 months?
I can go back and pull, I have the last 3 years, and I can bring it up here.
I mean, I thought that was one of the pride of their budget discussions, was how much they'd saved in that space. You know, that was highlighted in Blake's budget discussion.
I must have not been paying attention, I'm sorry.
So,
Dan, what-
year to date, we've taken in $86,000. Last May, at the same period, we took in $136,000, and prior to that, year prior to that was $100,000, $821.
But how much is that actually in, like, commercial waste that we would collect on anyway if it was being dumped?
We don't break it out that way, Brian, unfortunately, in our financials, so I can't break it out that
Yeah.
But there was a kind of highlight about how much we'd saved in stopping people from doing stuff, or stopping some level of traffic from
Yeah.
doing that. So besides what we've taken in, there was a kind of, I don't know, I thought it was highlighted in the budget about how much we'd saved in that in that particular part of the transfer station by whatever they were doing.
I don't remember talking about up the hill. We had talked about trash in the commercial haulers, et cetera. Is that what you're referring to?
No.
Up the hill.
It's the up the hill.
Oh.
That there was, and in fact, he highlighted it a lot because he was proud of what he did there in some ways from a financial perspective. And so besides the money taken in, I think he believes we've saved money in terms of whatever we've done
MSW.
in terms of, you know, monitoring or discouraging or whatever we've done in that space, right?
But in essence, what we've done is, for a lot of people, because of the business practices and also the detail of it, is we've eliminated that as a resource for people in the town that are already paying the taxes for these employees and for the location. So we can certainly generate revenue by taxing just about anything we want to. So to say that we've made money, we haven't made money. What we've done is we've taxed the residents a little bit more, and it's an artificial tax. If we want to pay for the recycling, I mean, I'm sure there would be a loss to reducing the cost to the residents, but you know, it
But
really
the-
is it's just another tax, and it's a pain in the neck, to be honest with you.
Well, I haven't thought too much about up there, but I mean, it's kind of ironic that you brought this up at this meeting, because from a whole different angle, you know, Dan and I talked, you know, with Sustainable Southbury, there's a whole, a grant out there that did we apply for it?
We did.
That we applied for from, and the whole point of the grant, I mean, what they're trying to convince you to do ultimately, although we have no, you know, you don't have to do this, and the first part of the grant doesn't do this at all. The first part of the grant is just to help you understand better about what's going on up there. But the second part of the grant, their kind of long-term goal is to move you towards pay to throw. Okay, But, I mean, we're pretty clear, we've been, pretty clear, I mean, Jeff's been pretty clear, doesn't want to go pay to throw. Woodbury went pay to throw, right? And they have a lot of towns around us have gone through the same grant process and adopted some form of pay to throw. But now, I'm not even thinking about up there. I'm thinking more about pay to throw for recycling, pay to throw for trash, right? But I think, our goal to some degree was maybe at least get better monitoring out of it and maybe start charging people at least for permits. Because otherwise, the thing is that, despite taking quite a lot of thing out of the waste stream that the Sustainable Southbury is paying for, the trash is just growing, right? The trash has been growing. It's been growing, quite, regularly. And I don't know, like maybe Blake way overestimated it last time we had that debate with him. And we'll see what happens in actuality. But the trash has been growing. And one reason, my sort of cynical mind is we're being arbed.
We're being what?
Arbed. In other words, Woodbury, you got to pay in Woodbury to throw trash. You got to, there's a lot of towns around here, you got to pay to throw trash.
Right.
We got people coming through and throwing trash that that really aren't Southbury residents.
Well, that's a whole nother,
I know,
subject.
so I'm getting it, but I'm saying it's, I guess it's ironic, but topical,
Well, let me-
that.
But the trash isn't gonna magically go away. I mean,
Yeah, where's it
if
gonna
we're
go?
producing it as a town, telling people they can't dump it at the dump means it's going to stay on their property, by definition.
Well, I don't know. I mean, like half, I don't know, how much do we think of the town actually use the transportation? For the majority of people, they pay to get it hauled by a hauler or somebody else.
It's pretty busy up there.
Well, no, I know it's pretty busy up there, but it's still, I know, you're right. It's good. But for instance, Heritage Village, has somebody hauling, like Traditions has somebody hauling. Most of most people who could use the transportation on my block have somebody hauling and they pay for it, right? So we're not benefiting all the taxpayers in a certain way, right?
Can I offer a perspective, because I've thought a little bit about this. Our recreation programs, we have a user fee for all the programs. The people who use the program pay for it. The town pays for the labor and the staff. We're at cross purposes here philosophically as to whether or not the town in its general tax rate should pay for any town, forget Woodbury, other out-of-towners for a moment. Should we have a user fee so that people who use the service pay for the service, or should we have just general tax? The dimension of if we make people pay for it, they might accumulate it, bury it, do things that they shouldn't be, that is against, town wouldn't want them to be doing for any one of a number of reasons. I think the Board of Selectmen have themselves a very interesting issue here. We've got $100,000 plus or minus, more or less. That's almost a half of a tenth of a mil. Every tenth of a mil counts as a revenue component. But then there's the philosophical thing. Do you pay for it? Should users pay for it? Should all taxpayers for it? Should some component be funded through a user fee? All of it? I don't know. That is a philosophical debate I think the Board of Selectmen need to take up. One of the questions, Brian, when I read his request, he talked about the checks and the regrettable feeling of some of the town employees that they're not trusted. That is not the case. I don't believe that's the case. Anyone can dream up anything, but a best practice is not to have cash and handled in town areas. We don't do it at the library. Well, they do it at the library and and $2 things, but they don't do it anymore in pool fees and seniors, and
Yeah, we
it's
don't
all
take
done
cash
with
in-
credit cards. Would it be, let me not ask now for your opinion, I was almost, but I don't want
But
that. Could you look at,
we
the-
don't take cash really in any department, John, as policy of the town.
I
What
understand,
we did do to help out at the transfer station, we just got it in last week. We're gonna train the staff. We got a credit card processor, so they'll be able to start taking credit cards up there.
will be credit card
So
processing.
there will be, we'll
credit
be
and debit
processing
cards.
credit cards. We had an issue with the Wi-Fi last week, so we couldn't install it last week, but this week, next week, hopefully we'll be up and live with that. So people will be able to come up with a credit card, make it easier.
So that would seem to take the economics, the
Okay.
economics out of it, we can solve that problem. Whether or not all taxpayers should pay for everyone's
Yes.
throwaway,
And
or
to
the
be
users pay
clear-
for it.
To be clear, okay, and I went over the top of it, okay, in terms of just expressing the overall opinion. What, you know, and Jeff is probably more on your side, okay, in some ways, okay? But the main point of the grant that we're looking for, what we discussed for the first year, and we've got no commitment to anything, and the thing that I've been most concerned about is trying to track stuff better. In other words, it keeps going up, and we don't really know why very well, okay? Now, maybe just arbitrarily, you think we shouldn't track it, that just let people go and do it, and it goes up every year, and we don't understand why. But I would like to understand why it's going up better.
Well, certainly understanding what is going on and why is important. I think, though, that for the Board of Finance, it's not Sustainable Southbury, that's a Board of Selectmen thing. I think for the Board of Finance, the economics are covered with the cash flow, with the credit card processing, which will be there, so that gets rid of that problem, takes care of the financial and accounting best practices the auditors want from us. I think what we ought to do is suggest that the Board of Selectmen address this as part of a,
I think part of the problem is that they used to allow a small amount of stuff to go up there. But to say at this point that nothing can go up and be dumped unless there's a fee paid just seems to be extreme to me.
any other,
Obviously, I'm-
Kathy and then Steve?
Jack as well.
And Jack has something? He raised his hand electronically. Jack, let me take these two, and then we'll do you.
Okay.
Kathy?
As far as trying to figure out how big of an issue it is, do we have any idea of how many permits are out there, the free ones that they gave away?
Permits?
Kathy, what we
the
did
stickers, you
The stickers, yeah.
in
Oh.
the past, we never numbered the permits. We never had any idea how many people received permits. This year, we are numbering them, so we'll know exactly how many we're giving out.
Every Southbury resident has a right to one for free.
And
Oh,
this
yeah,
is,
no, I know, but I know
How
they
many
were,
use it?
the permit that I have, or the sticker I have, has
Yeah.
a number on it, so I was just wondering.
well,
But you're saying they didn't for
No.
a long time, so.
right,
we
and a
don't-
lot of the stickers expire now, right today.
Every
So
2 years.
we're gonna get, so hopefully the new sticker stuff, we're gonna have a better sense.
Let me recognize Steve.
Just to, as you had mentioned, John, you know, the money is what it comes down to for us. And you had said, I think, Dan, it's give or take 100,000 a year. Is that money that we have, and I apologize if I should know this, that it goes right back to the transfer station or the refuse department, or is that simply general fund revenue, et cetera?
It's all general fund revenue.
Everything's
to offset
general
the
fund.
mill rate.
Right, okay.
Jack, thought?
Yeah, Blake has made a number.
It's hard to hear you, Jack. Can you talk closer to your microphone, please?
Well, I only have my, is this any better?
Hold on, Betsy's gonna turn it
try
up.
to amplify you.
Jack, try again.
Is this any better?
A little, yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Blake and his team have made a number of improvements to that upper level of the transfer station. It used to be that you just dump things into the bin air, an area that was demarked by concrete block. You now have to drive up much higher, and you're dumping things into containers that are hauled away. So there are certain costs associated with operating that part of the transfer station, and there are transportation costs associated with disposing the materials that, you know, go up and down with volume. I have not experienced what Brian has recently experienced. I've been there since they made the improvements to the upper area and was not charged a penny for small drop-offs. If they're charging everybody now, that's new news to me, and I haven't heard why
You forgot to wear your Board of Finance
they
badge.
made that decision. What's that?
I said Brian forgot to wear his Board of Finance badge.
Well, you know, you smile at the guys and they say, "Head, go right on up the hill." I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's a whole
That's been
nother
my
issue, but
experience.
That-
Anyway,
That's a bigger
anyway.
issue, Jack.
Okay,
But that's been my experience until lately, is that if it's a small amount, you can take it up and dump it. But when they got to the point where I had to pay $5 for a small little board, that's really, to me, over the top. No pun
Yeah, and
intended.
that sounds like maybe we need to understand what changes have been implemented by the Board of Selectmen or the Public Works Department, and the reasons for those changes, and consider whether we should suggest that some further revisions be made.
okay, we're gonna ask, Dan, would you make sure the first selectman gets a copy of our minutes and ask the Board of Selectmen to talk about considering this issue? Because I think luckily, it's not ours.
John?
It belongs to them. John, you have some thoughts?
Yeah, just one comment. I mean, my experience up there is things change. Some time ago, I brought up some white metal stuff, asked them if there was a fee. They said, no, there's no fee because we ship this out and we actually make money. We sell the scrap metal. So in essence, since the town is making money on selling the scrap, now, the last time I went up there, the new policy was in place. I didn't have any metal, I just had regular household stuff to get rid of, but the policy had changed. But even when they were not collecting, the sign still said that there was going to be a charge for everything going up the hill. So, you know, I think what you say is right. We need to take a look at this. What do we actually make money on after trucking it out, and so forth and so on, you know, and come up with something that, you know, meets Brian's issues of being, you know, fair to people
Yeah.
here in town.
I mean, if it's de minimis, I mean, to me, it just doesn't seem fair to have people pay for, you know, because you don't want them dumping stuff into the garbage, into the waste and the crusher. You want them to take it up there. So if you've got a small metal thing like I don't know, half a bike or a wheel or something like that off of a bike, you should be able to just take it up there and throw it in, because it's de minimis. But when it gets big enough, then I can understand to a certain extent, you know, you're talking a washing machine or although if you take it to Waterbury, they'll actually pay you for it. But I can understand why you'd want to have certain categories. But when you have small amounts, like they used to have, and like has been experienced before, to me, that was somewhat reasonable. But when you have everything that goes up the hill, that to me is just too much. But
Okay, we're gonna turn this over to the Board of Selectmen, and we wish them good fortune as they grapple with this.
It's an election year.
Excuse me?
It's an election year.
I wish them good fortune as they grapple with this in an election year. Let's see, the official bond statement. Dan?
So as everyone knows, we went out this week and to market. We had 5 people bid on our debt. We settled on Jeffries, who came in at basically the low net interest cost, which was we settled at 2.96%, 1-year IBAN. From what we had heard from the bond counsel and bond consultant, that given that we have no history in the market, that they were shocked that we even had 5 bids and they were as competitive as they were. So testament to everyone here and the Board of Selectmen and everyone that works for the town. Good job that we were able to get out there and get as good a rate as we did.
Is that the AAA bond rating, Dan?
That is, that has a lot to do with it, yes.
Yeah,
Because it's certified by a third party, basically.
yeah, again, good job. But I have the hardest time on these things figuring out what the effective rate is. Because the coupon's not the effective rate.
No, 296 is the effective rate.
Okay, all right, fine. But how you got there, I don't know, but yeah, I'll assume you're right.
Okay, well, that's good news. We had originally thought it was going to be 4.15 less 1, 3.15. That's in our plan, and it's at 2.96 or something like
Yeah,
that, so.
2.96, and we initially had a premium of 80, I mean, de minimis premium of 88, 267, so.
But
So 20 basis points better.
Yeah,
on this approach, we have to go to market every year, right?
we do.
So, in essence, we're bearing the interest rate risk into next year, right?
Okay, moving on. Let's see, new business. I'm going to entertain a motion to add to the agenda a review of the charter provisions as they relate to finance. We forgot to put that on the agenda. We talked about it last month and it didn't make it. Is there a motion to add that to the agenda? Thank you, John. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tom. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Unanimous? Thank you. Tom, you have some thoughts?
I generally liked the suggestion, personally. So I would be in favor of it. I thought that, I felt, I mean, I guess you're a bigger veteran than I am, so, but in my time here, didn't have to go through so much of a kind of real back and forth budget battle of that sort until this year, and was kind of disappointed in our ability to hear from the public before we had the meeting, right? And if that's a charter lock-in, I kind of feel like we should remedy that.
Did the timing difference make it to the final one? I get lost because I thought I saw something and
Don't know, John, I haven't gone to any of the charter revision meetings.
the
So I don't know if it made it or not.
revisions that we saw at our last meeting, putting aside Fred's comments, which we can talk about for a second, they were streamlining the charter verbiage by giving the town the ability to replace what had been charter dicta, whatever the plural is of stuff, with an ordinance, so that the processes that the town follows financially could be more reflective of what goes on.
What are possible questions they gave to the Board of Selectmen? Or the topics, so the finance section is in there, number 4.
An optimization mechanism, that's a good way to put it. It optimizes the process so that the charter, as is written, can be replaced with a thoughtful ordinance that the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance would present to the town. That's the basic one. And I don't know where they are with the timing issue, which was Fred's issue. And I certainly don't have a problem with changing the timing of when we have our hearing until after we make our recommendation. That's fine.
I respect Mr. Sell, but I might disagree with him on this. I think all charter changes should be more proactive rather than reactive, and I think this is a reactive suggestion by one citizen of Southbury. In my 7 or 8 years here, we've had many, many budget meetings. We have workshops, 5 in the month of February. We have 3 in the month of March. that no one from the public shows up. And I think we're just adding another meeting that no one will show up to.
Well, I think it's the same meeting, it's just, I don't know, I feel like it's the same meeting, it's just that now we've got a final budget. Like, I guess, you know, if I weren't on this committee, and I were sitting outside, and I was pretty busy, I would want to wait till the final budget before I really went through it, okay? And it sounds like, you know, by the time the final budget's around, we've already gone through all the meetings.
I thought the substance, and I hadn't seen, I don't know what the final thing that is gonna go to the Board of Selectmen.
This is what was presented to them the other night.
Okay,
This is the red line version.
so what does it do? Rather than try to read it quickly now and misunderstand it, does it change our hearing until after the Board of Finance makes its recommendation, rather than after the Board of Selectmen? So we're not talking about, I don't think we're talking about an extra meeting. We're talking about changing when the timing of the public hearing is until after we have made a recommendation.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that. It has worked fine in the past, but, okay. Steve?
I guess, I think Dan kind of said this already, but I was just trying to think, I mean, it's been a couple of years now for me, for some of you, longer on this board. Has this issue ever arisen in the past, or is this sort of specific to that one item that seemed to capture so many people's attention this year? And is it simply a matter of communication in the sense that if there's gonna be something proposed, if you know, a member of the Board of Finance is meeting with town officials in between meetings and public hearings, should the rest of the board or the public be cognizant of that prior to the next meeting, rather than, you know, we all kind of show up and sometimes like, well, we've been having discussions and planning and doing different things, and here's what we came up with, and it's just introduced at the beginning of the meeting, rather than, is there an ability for us to publicize that or communicate that ahead of time so that people don't feel like they were in the dark? I don't know.
I mean, the agenda is designed for that.
I think that's what Fred was getting at. Kathy?
I think what happened this time around is this was, normally when the selectmen give us a budget, we more times than not agree with it because we've had our discussions. This was the first time we sent something back. So by sending something back, that delayed everything by a week or two. So maybe just moving that up a
Well,
little bit so that there's enough
If I
time.
might, Kathy, we did not send anything back because we can't. Charter doesn't apply that. Somebody wanted to do that, but that is not what happened. It was not sent back.
Well, and I was personally, because I ended up running this meeting, I was frustrated by the meeting because, you know, we tried to orchestrate the meeting to send a clear message that we were going to do what we were going to do, and everybody told me I was out of order to do that. Okay, so you know, we even at the meeting, you know, where we publicized it, everybody told me I was out of order. Don't even talk about that. Send it back, and that's all we can do. We're done, right?
Well,
And-
town attorney said we couldn't.
Right.
And so.
So that
nothing- it was
just
nothing
to me
personal.
Well, we
seems.
didn't send it back, but we did recommend that.
Well, that got all cleared out of order. That
Well,
whole meeting got cleared out
hold
of
on,
order.
Hold on. I think you remember what we did in our process for the last
So many
several
years, yeah.
decades, anyway, has been to invite the Board of Selectmen to our meeting so that as we consider all those things, we can hear what they have to say so they can weigh in on it. So we have, to Steve's point, we have followed the process we have followed for decades. It just so happened that this year there were more than the normal number of items. We have changed things. This was not the only time we have. You'd have to look back and see what they have been in the past.
If we're going to,
But we do that often.
And that
But
meeting
in
was a
this case,
special meeting?
the-
That was a special meeting for some clarification on the department heads that came during the week-long meetings. Members of the Board of Finance wanted some clarification on their answers, so we invited them back to that meeting prior to the public hearing, which was a week later. So we didn't move it back at all. We just had a special meeting in between to get some clarification on some answers that were kind of vague, I guess, during the February weekly meeting that we had.
Yeah, but didn't we?
Exactly.
Didn't we send back to the Board of Selectmen?
No, stop right there. No, we did not.
No, but didn't we suggest a different budget or suggest that they take off, you know,
We followed the same process, except for having an extra meeting for clarification. We followed the same process we have for the last 30, 40, 50 years in accordance with the charter. And that is, we get their recommendation, we have a hearing, we talk to department heads, then we have a meeting where we set the budget, and we always invite the Board of Selectmen to that meeting so that they can weigh in, because we'll ask them what they think, and what we might want to do to change what they sent us. So we did the exact same thing we've done for the last 50 years.
So, but I mean, I guess if you want to take Dan's tack, right, we got to publicize that meeting more, because that's the final budget, right? And if anybody wants to come and complain, they should come and complain at that meeting, I guess. But, you know, that I don't know that the public sort of understood that clearly, right?
I don't think there is a mechanism for the public to make comment after the budget was decided, because there is no public comment after the budget was decided.
Well, I know,
Public comment
that's
came
correct.
before it was ever even, any of the cuts were ever introduced and or announced in any way.
No, I mean, the public comment came after it was all done, you know?
Not during that meeting. There was no way for anybody to comment on the suggestions or know about the suggestions before that was approved.
Well, before the meeting, you're saying, right? That's what I'm saying, is that if we're not going to do this, right, then we've got to kind of, I think, pre-publicize that meeting where we're going to have a cut fest, right? Because otherwise, the public never really gets a shot at it until we're done with it. And then we say, oh, it's done, we can't do anything about it.
I guess the question I would have for everyone to think about is what problem are we solving here? Was there a problem prior to this year with the way our budget process works? And has anyone had a complaint about it? And even today, has anyone, with the exception of Mr. Sell, has not complained to me about the budget process? I don't know if they've complained to anyone on this board, but Mr. Sell is the only one that seems to have an issue with it.
There were a lot of comments at the Board of Selectmen meeting and here after that happened. There were a lot of comments, more than I've ever seen come to this meeting.
Comments about the position, not about the
Some-
budget process.
I think, yes, there were. It had to do with the.
I think being upset that the position was cut goes hand in hand with how it was cut. Or however you
or
want
the
to
perception
however
of
you want
how
to
it
call it.
was cut. A lot of people assumed there was a backdoor deal, because they didn't like what they heard, so naturally they start, you know,
People
sniffing
can
around.
assume anything they want.
Yeah. No, I
We
know.
were very open about our dissatisfaction, not only during this budget cycle, but for several years. But, Steve?
No, it's not really a question, it's just something after hearing Dan and listening, you know, is it a situation where, to Dan's point, nobody seemed to ever have a problem with the process we use until this year the process yielded one specific result that these people didn't like.
Yeah.
And now
So they wanna
the
change the
process
process.
needs to change. I guess, and I'm not saying I'm sort of in favor or not in favor, it's just the thought that just keeps sticking in my
Well,
head is, to
but
Dan's
to
point,
Kathy's-
nobody ever really had
but-
a problem with the
okay,
process
but
until
to
the
Kathy's-
process yielded a poor result in their
Right,
mind.
but to Kathy's point, I think, and I'll back her up for longer than she's been here, is that this is the first time in my tenure where we really took an axe to the budget.
Or we
okay.
took away a position.
And,
or whatever,
and
yeah.
so, and I respect that, and I think we have to do it sometimes, hopefully in a blue moon.
Yeah.
But, you know, when you take an axe to a budget, that's the only time this really applies.
Yeah,
So, sure, for 20 years, we didn't take an axe to the budget, really. I mean, well, I don't know, John's probably taken an axe to the budget more times in his tenure than I have. But in, you know, I don't know, I've been sitting on this for at least 10 years. And in the last 10 years, I don't think we've had a precedent for when we took an axe to the budget like that, right? So, and this thing only really applies in that case.
We did have a situation, I think it was 3 years ago, where in the selectmen's budget, we cut a police officer position out of the budget. And it came to this board and no action was taken. The board didn't do anything to add the position back or anything. There were no complaints about the budget process during that time. No one came in and said, change the process. I just think if we're looking to change the whole process over 1 year, and by the way, this was an exceptional year with what happened to this town financially between a storm and Kettletown Road, I just don't see the need to change the charter for the one reactionary thing this year. That's just my opinion.
Okay, sort of ambivalent myself, whether they change it or not gonna change, I don't think it's gonna, would have changed, I don't,
It may not have resulted
we're
in
gonna
what they
change it
wanted
anyway,
anyways,
with
yeah.
just people are unhappy that the process, okay.
Did-
Well, we have,
Did Mr. Small bring it up to the Charter Commission? Didn't he say that he brought this issue up to them, so
I
it's up
guess he
to them
did.
anyways?
I don't know, might have.
Okay.
So they've made the Charter Commission's made a recommendation. I don't want to get into a discussion with them about whether they're right or wrong about something that we are not of a firm mind about one way or the other. So, and because I don't think it makes any difference whether we change that or not, personally, not substantive, I suggest we let it pass and if someone wants to make a motion to do something, that's fine, we can do that, but I'm not looking for anything to change.
Well, so he's made his he's given it to the charter already, and it's in their
And they did
process.
something with it.
Okay. All right, let's let it be. It's just-
Okay, we're gonna,
I guess if next year, if I've got people coming to me saying they want to voice thing about the budget, I'm right into that meeting. We're going to get more rabble-rousing at our final meeting. Except that, again, I'm hoping that this is a one-off, one in a blue moon kind of situation, because that was part of the point. Don't send us a budget like that.
yes, don't send us a 5.5% increase budget, yes.
We always tell everyone, come to the meetings, it's critical that they come. Matter of fact, this year, we had a woman call my office and say the budget's too high. We can't afford it. She was a Heritage Village resident. She came to one of our meetings, none of her friends came, but she came to voice her displeasure with the size of the budget during the selectmen's hearing. And I think she came to the special meeting as well, and I think she spoke at the special meeting that the budget's too high. So we do tell people to come and voice their opinion. You know, not everyone does.
Okay, we're gonna move, if there are no objections, we're gonna move along.
Please.
Okay, good. First Selectmen's report, anything that Jeff wants to relay to us?
I don't think so.
Okay. Finance Director, Dan?
So FEMA, we received $1.15 million from FEMA this week, was wired in. So the first money's starting to flow in. Thanks to Betsy, thanks to Blake for working on that and making sure that those applications go in and we're getting funded. Right now, we have a couple still in the hopper. We have the library, which was today just costed and approved, so that we should be getting fairly soon. That's $1,019,000. We have the second half of our roads, which is about another $1 million, and then we have the bigger culvert and bridge projects. So those are the ones we're waiting on, but we've received $1.1 million right now, coming in today.
Good news.
Is that in line with our thinking about what they would give us 75% of?
Right now, we're in line, John. It's these big culvert projects to see where they're gonna cost those at, but right now, yes, with the other projects, we're in line with what we had anticipated. We're gonna get at 75%.
Okay, so what we did get was 75% of the stuff we thought we could apply for. It was in our
Absolutely.
plan.
Yeah.
That's all I care about.
And you could thank Betsy for that.
Keep
'cause
it
she
simple.
Painstakingly put, I mean, the littlest minute things on that application that people wouldn't have thought about. and-
You're my heroine.
Yes, you're our heroine, yes. Pool update, Dan?
So as you guys know, the pool is officially open. We opened on schedule. Looks great. We were over there, John was over there on ribbon cutting ceremony. A couple of small things. We're holding back some of the retainage. We have a punch list that we put together today that they're gonna have to come back in the fall after we close the pool to fix. But we came in pretty much right at the budget number. We didn't touch the contingency number at all.
So what was the final number?
$2.3 million.
Interesting.
I think while the actual pool itself, it was right within the budget. They didn't use any contingency, so we're right where we should be on the pool. On the bathhouse, there, in the $3.4 million authorization, there's some money, and that work has not been done yet. And the selectmen are going to consider what really needs to be done or not. Now that it is all new and up, they can take a fresh look at it, and we'll know in the fall,
Yep,
by September, exactly what their recommendation is.
We did some minor modifications to the bathhouse. We created a fully ADA adult bathroom in the back, and did some raising walls and things like that. But the full, complete bathhouse probably will be, next year as we look into it.
How about the parking piece?
We
There was
added some
always-
spaces on the other side of the pool. We added about 14 spaces, which would be kind of dedicated pickleball spaces, but can be used for the pool as well. And the pool was free through July 4th for Southbury residents, and after July 4th, there's going to be a fee to use the pool.
My point being that this project will be closed out, and hopefully we'll have a final accounting or a bifurcated accounting in September, so that the pool committee can be disbanded and we can move on to other things. Is
Yeah,
that fair
we
to
had
say, Dan?
We had over 100 people there this weekend, so so far it's popular.
Okay, financial statement. This is a consent agenda item. Would anyone like to remove from the consent agenda any of the items for discussion?
There was one in there kind of,
If not, we're gonna acknowledge receipt of the financial statements. We'll now move to transfers.
So we have
Dan, we have four.
4 transfers. This is a salary adjustment for our part-time building official, actually. If you look at where our building permits are this year, they're up about 50%. So he's out doing more work, so we have him working more hours here, doing inspections. So that's what the need for this transfer is.
Well, let's do all four of them, and we'll take them as a single vote, because I don't think there's anything controversial in any of them.
This is Park and Rec with our new Park and Rec director. She was managing her budget. There were some activities that came in as part-time salaries, and activities got intermingled. So she drew over her part-time salaries line, but her activities line has got enough money to cover it, so we're just transferring from activities to part-time salaries.
did you get clear with Kim about what her issue was with the transfer? and
This
part-
is the
Oh,
transfer
oh,
here.
okay.
This is the Highway Department. The overtime for the FEMA application was still in their line as we went through year end. We realized that, so we're just moving it to the FEMA application line. So it's moving their $39,000 in overtime that was reimbursed from FEMA. So we're moving it to the emergency disaster line to put it in the right location. And this is annually, we, in June or May into June, we go over on our tax refunds. So this is basically just paying over the refunds for people that either duplicately pay their taxes or people that pay and also have it withheld from their mortgage and the mortgage company pays. So this is just to get that back to not being drawn over.
Are there any
Motion to
questions
approve.
about any of the transfers?
Motion to approve.
All four. Thank you, Jack. Is there a second? Thank you, Kath. Any questions, clarifications? Tom?
Kim, did you talk to Dan about the Parks and Rec thing that did you understand that?
I did, but, thank you. I did ask Dan about the Parks and Rec thing, and I really still don't understand why the overrun was so high and how it was supposed to be made up and why it wasn't brought to our attention as a board.
Because as we went through this, Kim, we had money in the line, and as we got into June with the last 2 weeks of camp, that's where she drew the line over. So we were watching it closely with Megan, our Park and Rec director, and we knew as we looked into it, she wasn't drawn over until the last week of June, where she had a huge camp, because we ran 2 weeks of camp in June this year, not one.
Okay, so the previous month's overruns were still within.
Still within the budget
number
lines,
that was
yep.
available in that
She was
line
getting
item.
very close, because we send out a monthly to all our department heads, and we can look at it, we let them know when they're getting close. We let her know. We met with her and told her she's getting very close. And then we looked at her salaries and an estimate of what her staff was gonna be for those 2 weeks. That's why last meeting I said she's gonna draw over. I knew she was gonna draw over, but she hadn't drawn over yet.
Yeah, I still think that I wish it had been something that we had discussed more in the meeting, but also glad to know that it was covered.
Yeah,
Until this.
in the monthly financials I put together, there is a departmental. Now, it's an overview of the whole department, which is the actual
Yeah.
budget. I can send out everyone the actual backup to that, which is the breakdown of every detailed department. It would just be a thicker report for everyone to review.
Yeah, I think the consent agenda thing is kind of where it kind of just got swallowed up, if that
Yep.
makes sense. I thought it might be pulled out for those times, but
And-
missed it.
And again, as to the consent agenda, anyone that wants to strip something out of there and talk about it, vote on it separately, more than welcome to. I think we follow that process at every meeting,
Mhm.
but this is expeditious and it seems to be working. Okay, there's a motion made and seconded. Any further comments? All those in favor, approving the 4 transfers?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Abstaining? None. Next, cell towers. Dan?
I don't have an update on that. We're still trying to find someone that might be interested in working with us on the cell tower at Stilson Road, which is the purchased firehouse. We are getting a lot of interest in the Kettletown Road, but we just renewed that lease a year ago, so.
We just did that, so
we just
we're
did that,
done.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if you could keep us updated
will.
monthly, that would be great. Reports. Tom, IPOC.
Yeah, we had an IPOC meeting. Nothing big to report. We saw the end of May numbers, so we're probably going to end up above 10%, I'm guessing, for the pension this year, which is 3 years in a row we beat the target. And so it also beats the roll-off, so we'll look really flush from next year. But we've got 1 year, the year after that rolls off is a huge up number. So,
Yeah, the year after COVID number.
so beware of that. But so when we look flush this year, remember that we got another number rolling off the year after. And the reserve fund is going to be above 6%, which beats, STIF and other things by 150, 200 basis points, all, good stuff right now.
Thank you. Board of Education, Janet has nothing for us, I understand. Insurance Working Group, John, we haven't met, we haven't been called to meet, there's nothing to pay attention to. Roads and Bridges, Jack, anything for us?
No meeting. I will note there's a lot of progress going on Oldfield. If you haven't seen it, that
Yes,
project
yes,
is
go,
underway
go.
and should be completed in short order.
We talking, how short order?
Fall.
Next, RUPAC. RUPAC did have a meeting. Quorum was there. We're fully organized. There were no pieces of land brought before us. There was a piece of land brought before us 3-4 months ago, but it was not, the timing was wrong on how it was handled. So there were no reimbursement requested, and the RUPAC folks, I think, better understand about what the best way to organize themselves to make requests when they want to. So other than that, no report. Energy, Tom?
Yeah, we had a meeting there too. We recommended, and I think we finally got the letter off to accept the Verigy. I don't know, you guys remember this is so long ago, but we're going to be in the auction to do the transfer station project, to put the the solar panels at the transfer station, and it's kind of like a cell tower deal in the sense that it might generate us $40,000 a year or something if it goes. Now, the latest Senate bill, might ditch the whole thing, and we're in the auction, so there's still a lot of hurdles to go, but at least we got over the hurdle of signing the letter to them, and and going ahead.
So subject to the vagaries of what's going on in Washington, we're on a continuous path, and that'll be whatever it is.
Right.
They are in, those tax credits, I understand, are in jeopardy.
Yeah, well,
So we'll
and they're in
find out.
jeopardy- in the latest Senate bill, they're in jeopardy quicker than they were in the last bill,
Right.
so who knows?
We'll see. Okay. Anything else the board members would like to bring before the meeting?
One thing,
Yes, John?
question for Dan. Dan, on the borrowing, okay, what we saw in the press was that we bonded. My interpretation, I believe what we did, we issued bands, right?
That's correct.
Okay, we issued bond anticipation notes, with a 1-year
1 year.
rollable maturity, okay? Is the intent then, as we get FEMA money, to eventually pay those down and then roll the bands that we need to continue to pay for the additional repairs that have to be done?
Yeah, John, we put together a schedule of this, I could send it to you, of the payment down of the bands based on our FEMA reimbursements, so, and if we have to next year, go out what that would be, and it'd be, of course, a lot lesser, because the FEMA pay down would,
And then just as a comment, as a compliment, tremendous compliment to Dan, on what you look at what the town paid for this, okay? With our AAA bond rating now. If you take the fully taxable equivalent, okay, of our tax exempt rate and extrapolate it, he was able to borrow this money at a lower cost after tax or tax equivalent than the US Treasury pays for similar borrowings of the same maturity. And that is absolutely a tremendous accomplishment.
yeah, it's everyone on this board, you know, Board of Selectmen, Finance Office, I mean, everyone that works at Town Hall, I think everyone has done a great job, like I was joking with John, I hate to quote, a person, but this town wins a lot on this stuff, so we want to keep winning.
We thank Mr. Jeffries, who bid the low amount.
Absolutely.
So, thank you.
Matter of
Thank you,
fact,
Mr.
matter
Jeffries.
of
Thank
fact,
you,
it's-
Mr.
it's a
Jeffries.
funny story, because the guy from Jeffries is looking to move to Southbury, and he called me today looking, inquiring about Heritage Village and his retirement, because he is getting to his retirement age, for him and his wife, so I'm
Oh,
gonna
so
take
he
him out to play golf, and we'll see.
he was
if-
just
if
arbing
he
his
loves Southbury
taxes.
as much, yeah.
You can take him to lunch at McDonald's.
Exactly.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, sure, Kim.
I'm wondering when the last time was that we audited our financial policies and reviewed them.
We do an audit, the annual audit, Kim, they do look at our financial policies. So there is a section in our annual audit, they do look at our policies.
But
We-
doesn't the Board of Finance bear responsibility for our financial policies? Like, shouldn't we look at them too?
Financing Southbury. We could.
Yeah, we could certainly bring it up
We
in the
could,
September
we certainly
meeting.
could.
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't we, good point. Well, why don't we get Financing Southbury out to
Yep.
everybody? It's on the website, is it
It
not?
is, it's on the website, yep.
Betsy, could we ask you to send it special so we don't have to go hunting through the website? And let's add it to the agenda.
Is that, what other financial policies do we have in place?
My goodness. We have a lot of practices. Do we have a practice book, Dan?
There might be one at the town clerk, John, I don't know. We have our purchasing policy, which has been approved. We're just about finished rewriting that. Other than that, I'd have to look
Well,
at
we
the
have the charter.
We
Yeah,
have the
We have the
charter.
charter, which is
Yeah.
rather specific.
Yeah,
We,
Did we
which is
review
rather-
that? I thought we talked about, I didn't do it, but somebody talked about, did you guys review any of the charter revisions about the financial parts?
we did review
That's a
them,
bit-
and, yeah, I mean, the charter has a lot of financial, information in there and practices in there, best practice, so it's,
But I thought we just kind of reviewed that recently, didn't we?
we did, yep.
So we've got, I guess there are three things. There's quote, Financing Southbury, there's the purchasing policy, and then there's the charter. So those are the three things. And let's take a look at them in September. Okay. If there are no other matters to come before the meeting, I declare us adjourned. Have a nice summer. We'll see you in September.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Thank you, John.
Our pleasure, Jack. Take care, guys.
Love your office, Jack.